Hello viewers, friends, former colleagues, family, snakes who dislike the video a minute after upload. This week I'm going to be reviewing popular American film director Spike Lee's films, or as he calls them, joints. I'd like to precede these reviews by mentioning that as a white man, I don't presume to know enough about the struggle that many black people face both in America and throughout the world, so feel free to take these reviews with a pinch of salt. However, I am a film fan, and I hope that as a consumer my opinion can still be counted without bias. To kick things off then, the documentary Four Little Girls should be shown in every school in the world as a powerful warning against racism and what it can do to a community. Even in 1997, 34 years after the event, it shows how the impact of the deaths of the children still affected all those that had known them. It did feel a little like a made-for-TV movie, a film that could have been made by many a filmmaker, let alone Spike Lee. Maybe it was because of his name that he had such good access, but it bared little resemblance to Spike Lee's other output, and I found myself missing a lot of his auteur touches. One part that reminded me of Lee's later work involved a short section that showed footage of the 1995 burning of predominantly black churches. This brought to mind Black Klansmen, and the way that Lee showed that whilst historical, these themes of racism in both films are still prevalent today. I can't stress enough that Four Little Girls is an important film that everyone should see, by any means necessary. On to lighter material now, by Lee's standards anyway. Girl 6 is a great laugh, more a rom-com than anything I've seen him do before. That may have something to do with the script, which for once isn't penned by Spike Lee himself. His direction shines through anyway, particularly in the segments that go into the lead character, played by Teresa Randall's, imagination, showing her as the star of multiple films from the classic cinema era. The soundtrack by Prince and Cliff Idleman is amazing, obviously, and serves as a sort of Prince's greatest hits. This was much more enjoyable than the reviews at the time give it credit for. On to Crooklyn now, which reminded me a lot of the Chris Rock sitcom Everybody Hates Chris, because of the setting in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and the fact that both are semi-autobiographical. The scenes of family and neighbourhood life that make up the first half of the movie seem more like sketches and meander along without seeming to go anywhere. It's only at the point in the film where Troy is taken to the country that the film seemed to become sure of itself. That being said, I don't think the aspect ratio change when Troy left Brooklyn looked good enough to work, and it really took me out of the story. It looked messy, and I genuinely thought my laptop had broken, you dig? Once we were back in Brooklyn, the ending worked for me and really packed an emotional punch, mainly due to the time taken to get to know the family in the slow build-up. Maybe Blade has ruined Wesley Snipes for me, but I found it difficult to separate the actor and his character of Shadow in Mo Better Blues, particularly whenever he wore leather. His friction with Denzel Washington's Bleak Gilman was believable, and both actors gave their best. You could really understand their friendships and the underlying jealousies and insecurities between them. There were hints of humour in the script and classic sitcom shenanigans. Two dates turn up on the same night and ensues with much hilarity, but maybe not enough of the fireworks that we, the audience, wanted. Partway through, I really wondered if it was the true story of a jazz musician that had passed me by. Sadly not, but we'll always have the Branford Marsalis Quartet soundtrack featuring Terence Blanchard. That's one for my Christmas list, family and friends watching. I hadn't actually commented on Spike Lee's appearances in his films throughout his career, but aside from Four Little Girls, and even then he has a voice cameo, he does play a role in all of the features I've reviewed today. His best performance of those I've seen so far was in Mo Better Blues, where his role as the slightly useless manager Giant was laudable and brought to mind uncut gems. I'm a big believer in that if a movie is over 1:45 or 2 hours even, then it really needs to justify every single one of those minutes. Malcolm X, at over 3 hours, is one of those films that couldn't really be told any other way. Lee gets all the important information across, creating amalgamations of the various bit players where necessary. He shows Malcolm X as a compelling character, which is probably partly due to one of Denzel Washington's best performances, which, let's be honest, is saying something when you look at his body of work. The character of Malcolm is more human than his portrayal in my no doubt limited experience of X's ideology and complex mythology. The film was informative, and as every film should be, even with such important subject matter, entertaining. Sure enough, this was my favourite film of the week. Like Four Little Girls a few years later, this is the calling card of a much more mature filmmaker than Spike Lee's other work in this period. Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, don't like, subscribe, or don't, whatever. Lee gets all the important information